Good evening, America. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from the nation's capital. A quick programming note. My amazing co-host, Amanda Head, she is the pool reporter at the White House, a prestigious opportunity for her, but the president is still going strong at this hour, so she's not going to make it back to the studio in time for the show. You're going to have to fly solo with me, but we've got a lot of news to report at the start of today's show. And again, some more sad news. Another day, another sniper, another killing, another political inscription on a bullet used to kill. Political violence is alive and well, sadly, in this country. Today, this morning, a shooter opened fire on a Dallas ICE facility, killing a detainee and wounding two others before dying himself by a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Authorities have identified the shooter as 29-year-old Joshua Yan. We've also heard from authorities that the shooter, Yan, had written messages on rounds of ammunition, and we got this picture showing the words anti-ICE written on one of those rounds. The writing mirrors other writings on ammunition in two other cases of political violence we've recently endured. The Charlie Kirk assassination, our incredible colleague here at Just the News 2 weeks ago, as well as the Minneapolis Catholic school shooting from back in August. We'll be talking a lot about this story over the next few hours, or at least the next few minutes of the show. We're also getting reports that some accountability may be taking shape for one of the most high-profile figures in the Russia-collusion hoax, former FBI Director James Comey. Multiple sources confirming to Just the News that the Justice Department is in the final stages of deciding whether to seek a federal grand jury indictment in the Eastern District of Virginia, accusing Comey of giving false testimony back in September 2020 when he denied that he had authorized leaking any classified information. Now, this indictment is based on some documents that Just the News, if it happens, and remember, the indictment hasn't been handed up yet, but if it were to happen, it's based on documents we made public back in August that show the federal prosecutors had evidence that Comey did indeed authorize the leaks of classified information, while one of those was confirmed by his former chief counsel. That's a pretty big deal. One of Comey's other advisors was recently subpoenaed by federal prosecutors in that criminal probe, so activity is ramping up. The deadline for the statute of limitations is next Tuesday, so if they're going to bring those charges, it's going to have to happen between now and next Tuesday. All signs are, though, that the prosecutors are heading towards a possible request for an indictment. We'll see if the grand jury hands it up. One last note, we've been keeping you apprised of what the FBI has been learning from its raid of John Bolton's home and his private office today. The search warrant returns for the former National Security Advisor were released by a court. What did they show? That the FBI did in fact find classified documents, some marked secret, some marked confidential, in John Bolton's private office. That is a bad sign for his legal future. Could potentially lead to criminal charges of mishandling classified information. Remember a couple of weeks ago when we were reporting what was really happening, there was other media out there suggesting, oh, this is a political vendetta. It was all about the book. It's not about the book. It's actually about classified information that was in his possession in a place where it apparently was not authorized. That, according to the search warrant returns released today. We've got a great show for you today. And a little bit later, we're going to have Bill O'Reilly, the great journalist, the author of another great book. You're going to really be impressed by what he's been talking about. He decided to pick the topic of confronting evil. We're all confronting evil a lot in the last few weeks. We're going to talk to Bill about that later in the show. But we're going to kick off our show with someone who knows an awful lot about James Comey, accountability, weaponization. She is Wyoming Congresswoman Harriet Hageman. Congresswoman, great to have you on the show.
How are you, John?
We are well. Sad again. Once again, Americans dying at the hands of what appears to be a politically motivated assassin or sniper. It just keeps happening. The inscriptions kind of give us some indication of what the motive might be. The target would suggest that, a nice van. Your thoughts on what went down today and what we can do to start to counteract this rash of political violence that's is a scourge in America right now?
There are political leaders of this country that are giving dog whistles to people, and they know what they're doing. They need to stop this rhetoric about how ICE is kidnapping people off the streets and they're showing up in unmarked cars and black and brown people are at risk. All of that is an absurdity. They are enforcing the law and they are following the law. And what they are doing is they are inciting these people to violence, and they know it, and they need to ratchet it down. What Gavin Newsom has been saying, what Hillary Clinton has been saying, it's absolutely inexcusable. I do not understand why they believe that coddling criminals is a better approach than holding people accountable and actually deporting people who should not be here, who are putting our communities at risk and need to be deported.
Yeah, and you put your finger on something that's so important. What the left has done, and we're all entitled to our free speech, and we defend the right to have our free speech. But when you literally falsely accuse someone of doing something like ICE agents who are just enforcing what is legally allowed under the law to do, what we ask our ICE officers to do, you're creating a false scenario that maybe causes people to enact. Is there any discussion in Congress to reprimand or denounce some of the statements that some of your own colleagues on the left have made on the floor of Congress, on television? Is there some way to repudiate that in a public way to start the process of getting a more common sense discussion going on?
Well, we attempted to do that with Representative Omar from Minnesota just a week or so ago,
right.
and 4 of my colleagues actually voted to table the censor resolution, and they came back and said that they believed in the First Amendment and freedom of speech. A censor resolution on the House floor doesn't have anything to do with freedom of speech. It is a representation that we vehemently disagree and want to hold someone accountable for their bad conduct that reflects poorly on the United States Congress. She's absolutely free to say what she wants to say, but we as a body have certain mores, certain standards, if you will. And when you violate those, we have the right to stand up and say, we are going to say that what you've done is wrong. And that's what a motion to censor does. I thought that Nancy Mace's motion laid out the facts and why it was appropriate for her colleagues to reprimand her for what she said.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if today's tragic events make some of those 4 Republicans rethink their vote or open the door for some other sort of censure moments. It wasn't that long ago when James Comey did his tour saying he had a higher loyalty and it was morally superior for as an FBI director, but we're now learning he may have falsely told Congress that he did not authorize leaks when in fact his own lieutenants have told the FBI that he did. The notion that a grand jury may soon get that case and be asked to hand up an indictment, your thoughts on what that final statement might be about the Comey era of the FBI?
So in your opening monologue, you referenced 2 gentlemen, John Bolton and James Comey, both of who have in recent years made a career of attacking and attempting to destroy Donald Trump. Yeah. What I would say and what I've described is I think that Donald Trump can be referred to as the boomerang or the president. I mean, he has the ability. There is some way that people can throw these things out there hoping that they're going to be able to do damage to him, and it always comes right back and hits them in the forehead. And I think both of these gentlemen are examples of that. James Comey, in my opinion, is a liar. He lied to the American public. He lied to the president when he was allegedly serving him. He was involved in all of the nonsense with President Obama when they were trying to find a way to cover up what they had done in spying on the Trump campaign in 2016. He is a despicable human being. He violated his oath to the Constitution and to honesty and truthfulness. He violated his oath when he came and testified, claimed that he would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I think that we need accountability there. And I am excited by the prospect that he might be the very first person that we can actually hold accountable for the terrible things that he did, both under Obama and President Trump.
Yeah, I would be remiss in not pointing out that you've been such an integral member of the House Judiciary Committee that helped identify so much of this weaponization the last couple of years since Republicans took control of the House in 2023. The work you have all done to let us know how bad it was has been really important to this country, and I know you've been a big part of that. You've also been a big part of making sure that globalism and some of the insane ideas that the president called out yesterday at the United Nations don't ever affect everyday Americans. You have legislation to keep the United Nations from forcing the United States one day, which is one of their stated goals, of paying reparations for climate change. Tell us about that and why it's important, because the UN's serious about maybe doing this, right?
So I thought that President Trump's speech yesterday at the UN was absolutely glorious. He was a truth teller from beginning to end, and he threw bomb after bomb after bomb in that room, telling Europe that they are going down the wrong road, that they are destroying their own countries with their open borders, their globalism, and their radical green agenda. So the UN has decided that they are going to attempt to enforce their law that for countries who use fossil fuels, they are going to have to pay reparations. I assume those reparations would be paid to the UN, and then the UN gets to decide how that money is distributed. Now, John, I'm going to tell you something. I have signed on to a bill to defund the United Nations. I think that it is such a failed organization, and all you need to do is go through the bullet points that President Trump laid out on the table yesterday. All of the wars that they have been absolutely not only incapable of resolving and solving and ending, but actually exacerbating. Their involvement with what has been going on in Gaza and their refusal to help Israel to actually deliver aid to the Palestinians there, and their efforts to prop up Hamas. This whole thing with the global warming agenda. So I have introduced a bill last week that would prohibit the use of taxpayer dollars to pay reparations, really for any kind of a bad idea that the UN would come up with. But right now, the threat is that for any country that uses fossil fuels, they could be liable, according to the UN, to pay reparations. Every country in the world uses fossil fuels. So what you know is that this is really targeting the United States. Yeah. They have been unsuccessful in forcing us to go down the failed road that you see in Europe. Right now, Germany, France, England, their energy prices have skyrocketed. They are deindustrializing. I read yesterday that Mississippi, which is the poorest state in the United States, is within $2,000 of the average citizen of what they earn in Germany. On average, in the United States, we earn 40% more than people in England earn. Why? Because of their failed energy policies. They are deindustrializing. They are destroying their businesses. They're destroying their families. They're destroying their culture and their communities. And in many ways, they're doing it through this green agenda scam, through the global warming, climate change. And it's over my dead body that the United States is going to pay reparations to anybody or apologize to anybody by the policies that we have that make sure that we have affordable and reliable energy.
Yeah, so important. And congrats to you for introducing that legislation. It's an important piece of legislation that protects all of us Americans from a globalist ideology that clearly doesn't have our interest at heart at all. I spoke of the Judiciary Committee, and yesterday, once again, the Judiciary Committee dropped another bombshell when we got the admission from Google that they were in fact pressured by the Biden administration to censor specific opinions and people on YouTube, sometimes against their will and against their own policies. It used to be we settled our differences with debate, maybe some humor here and there, but the Biden administration began with censorship, then prosecution. Now we have people going as far as execution. But the Biden administration seems to be held to account for what it did enforcing these platforms. Do you think that's possible in Congress?
I do. And I was a member of the Select Committee on Weaponization of the Government. And through first the Twitter files and then bringing in other social media companies, we were able to expose the fact that these companies were, in fact, not only that the Biden administration was demanding that they censor conservative thought and conservative communication, whether it had to do with COVID, the 2020 election. There was a whole variety of jokes. There was a whole variety of things that the Biden administration was demanding that these companies censor. We have exposed that. I think that exposure was critically important, and it is now time that we hold people accountable for this. That's why I have introduced the First Amendment Accountability Act. Yes. And what that would do is it would allow someone who had been censored by a federal agency or a federal employee and actually to have any of their First Amendment rights impinged upon. So freedom of speech, freedom of religion, to peaceably assemble, freedom of the press, and to petition your government, which all of those rights were violated repeatedly during this whole COVID fiasco. What my bill would allow is that an individual who had their First Amendment rights impinged upon would be able to sue the federal government for damages, for an injunction, and for attorney's fees. So this is something that I think is very, very important to protect our First Amendment rights. One example of where this could be used is, if you remember during the storms last year, FEMA admitted that they were not going to those homes that had Trump signs. Well, that's clearly viewpoint discrimination. Under my bill, if you were one of those households, you would be able to sue the federal government for that kind of viewpoint discrimination. But it would also apply in the context of the Biden administration demanding that these social media companies censor American citizens.
That is amazing and important for the first time, some real accountability. Congresswoman, you're always working on some of the most important issues in this town. It's been a great honor every time you come on the show because we always walk away a lot smarter than when we started. Great to have you on today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, appreciate you so much. All right, folks, a quick commercial break. When we on the shooting that targeted a Dallas ICE facility, we'll be right back with more on that. Hey, America, I got a question for you. What are the 3 pillars to good health? Great diet, lots of exercise, and of course, great sleep. If you snore, you not only will keep others from a restful night's sleep, but it could also be creating an underlying cause or other health issue for you. Zypa is the only FDA-approved and patented mouthpiece invented by Dr. Jonathan Greenberg. It has a 91% success rate to stop snoring. From now until the end of October, get a Zypa for you or someone you love and save $10 on a limited pink edition Zypa. With every order, they'll donate $10 to breast cancer research, plus receive a free 30-day supply of Dr. Greenberg's breathable mouth tape. Go to Zypa.com and use the code PINK or text PINK to 511-511. Visit Zypa, ZYPPAH.com, and use the code PINK or text PINK to 511-511. Remember, Zypa is happy Z spelled backwards. Go to Zypa.com and use that code PINK today. Text fees may apply.